Well, good morning, everybody. I shall try and be very brief with this, but the subject just won't go away, shall we say. This COVID-19 restrictions, lockdowns, and the carry on, particularly in Victoria, they're going to ease some of their restrictions. I want to make a couple of points along the way here. Number one, in Sweden, and it's all over the news, it's all anywhere can find it, anybody can find it on YouTube or anywhere else, doesn't have any lockdowns. Repeat, doesn't have any lockdowns, but they do have social distancing, they wear masks in public, they use sanitizer all the time to make sure everything's clear and clean, and what that does is offer a very greatly reduced chance of a person catching COVID-19. However, having said that, their death toll has gone up quite a bit, and people would react to this online, I'm sure, with, you see, that's why the restrictions are in place in Victoria. Look at that. There's only been about 1 or 2 deaths in recent days. Yes, but what will happen is, like what's happening in Sweden now already, you'll get herd immunity, which means eventually, when, for example, like now we know there's 140 laboratories working on a vaccine for it, do you realise that the flu vaccine that they've got at the moment is only 40% effective? And you know what that means? 40% of the people are protected for life, and the other 60% are susceptible to the flu. Maybe mild doses or full-blown flu. And what is happening, or what was happening now, is that we had 1,500 deaths a year from the flu in Australia on a good year, and 3,000 on a bad year. Now, the cases of the flu, and indeed probably even the cold, have gone down somewhat lately. And the reason is, of course, people are trying to avoid COVID-19, which is fair enough. I don't want to get it either. But therefore, because they're using sanitizers and masks and social distancing and all that kind of thing, they won't catch the flu and they won't catch a cold, which is great, but we don't want to live that way. And we want the borders reopened. And in Victoria in particular, we have our son living in Melbourne, and my brother lives in Western Victoria, up near Horsham. And they're required to wear masks outside and all that sort of thing. Now that's okay in a way, as I say. Well, but if you catch COVID-19, you've got a 98% chance of survival, which is pretty good. I ask you the general question. If you had a 98% chance of winning the lotto tomorrow, would you go out and buy a ticket? The answer is, of course you would. Of course you would. 98% chance of winning. Go out and buy a ticket. I go and buy a ticket even when there's a 1 in a million chance to win. So there's your answer, right? So it's not that bad. It's mainly the elderly and the nursing homes and that sort of thing, which is still unfortunate. It's not nice. No one's trying to be funny about this. Yes, the COVID is very, very... the infection is very easy to happen. It's in the air. You only have to breathe on a person. And would you believe a molecule can go in a person's eye? If someone doesn't know they've got COVID-19, they breathe on you. Just think about that for a minute. You have COVID-19. They sneeze or cough in the supermarket and it floats down much more than the 1.5 metres. Forget about that. At least 3 times the distance before those germs, or call it molecules or whatever, fall to the floor and eventually they die out. You will get it. If you're walking around there in the supermarket buying this and that, and it goes through the air and it goes in your eyes, you've got COVID-19. Now, I'm not wanting to make a panic out of this. In fact, it's exactly the opposite. We will eventually move to the Swedish model, which allows full integration, all the business to operate, transport to operate, etc., etc. Well, they are talking about reducing use of public transport and all that sort of thing. I think that's completely unfair. And in the Australian context, by the way, it's ridiculous. here in Queensland. They've got very few COVIDs around here. If you want to go and book on the Tilt train to go up to Rockhampton, every second row is booked. So if a person wanted a window seat, they'll get one because they get 2 seats. And then a person might be across the aisle. And 2 seats further up, might be 2 people sitting in that seat. They're fine. 2 seats further on, there's more. And so on. So your capacity is cut in half. And I'm not sure how it works on the Brisbane to Cairns. But I did the trip only the other day, actually, last week, from Brisbane out to Longreach and Winton, and there was not one person wearing a mask. There was a few jokes and a bit of talk about COVID-19 and so on, and when I got on the bus, the little minibus, the guy insisted you will squirt a little bit of sanitizer. Every passenger got a little squirt of sanitizer. Now we're all happy, we all sit down and go. 6 of us went out to Winton. I was the only person coming back, and I got a squirt of sanitizer, and I sat up next to the driver, shall we say, with the next front seat there, and had a good old yarn there. So the thing is, all we're trying to do is slow down the COVID-19 and eventually move into that herd immunity. And when they develop, or if they develop a vaccine, if you're lucky, it'll be 50% effective, and then they're talking about 80% of the people in Australia having it. Well, I'm not rushing in for it. But what I do, unfortunately, what I think is, they might say, well, like you have to have a vaccine for certain countries, or you have to have something in rare cases in Africa or somewhere for yellow fever or malaria or something, you have to take malaria tablets. I accept all that. This has been going on all our lives. So but if they say, you will have COVID-19 vaccination before you go overseas, I'd say, roll up the sleeve, Doc, there you go. I'd take it. And if Cheryl and Andy, for example, wanted to come out to Australia and they had to have a vaccination to do so, they should go ahead and do it. So anyway, I have sort of made my point, let's say, or series of points here on the issue, and I hope that it's of some interest, that it sparks a thought on where we're going with all this. I believe we're heading towards a situation where the borders will reopen, where life will come back to normal, but the Swedish model's the best, but what we will have is eventually a vaccination, and eventually much more freedom to move around, and commerce and travel and all the rest of it. In the meantime, it's going to be pretty tough, and Victoria's got it the toughest at the moment. They're going at all this lockdown. It's really not going to work in the end. Business has got to open up. People have got to be able to travel. They will rebel in the end if you don't let them have that common sense freedom in life. All right, I had my little bleat, let's say, about it, guys, so make what you will of it. I welcome any civil and polite comments, but no abuse, thanks. So thanks for viewing.